Oh, thanks for coming, Amy. And
Thanks for doing that. I'm
yeah,
excited.
me too. And so Amy and I, we knew of each other for quite a few years, and then we met in Prague at a conference where we were both speaking, and I guess that was where the friendship started. We had a fun time in Prague, and then we've seen each other in a couple of places, and then we've also just hung out at Tivoli Gardens in Denmark, and we've been speaking about wanting to do something together for quite a few years, and so now finally it's happening in Copenhagen in March, and we can always speak more about that later. But we wanted to start today off by just introducing this topic of life is letting go. It's something that we're both just been, yeah, reflecting on and seeing more and more. And so that's what we wanted to share with you today, just our reflections on what does that mean. And so I'm gonna hand it over to you, Amy, first, and then we'll see what comes up.
Yeah, I just had a whole different flash of things as you said that life is letting go. Not that I didn't know that that's what we were here to talk about before. And I didn't have anything for sure in mind before, but I was reflecting on it earlier today. And just as you said that, life is letting go, totally different things kind of came up. And I guess um, what just came up is the absolutely um, unfindable, ungraspable nature of life, which is weird because it doesn't feel like that. It's like it's the biggest paradox of all. Life seems and feels so solid and real and obvious. I mean, it's obvious that we're here communicating with each other, that there are bodies on a screen, and this all seems so very real that you're having thoughts and feelings and all of that. Um, and there is no denying that in a sense. And yet there's also the sense of the thoughts and feelings, let's just say, when they arise, where are they? And what are they? And can we find them? And can we hold on to them? Can we hold on to anything in life? Anything. When we really, really look, we absolutely can't. And I think thought and feeling is such an interesting thing with this because think about just thoughts. You have such a real, concrete experience of thoughts. You can be having a thought about the past or the future. It's undeniable. You can imagine your past or future. I don't know how it is. I love exploring this stuff, but like, how does it come to mind? Are there pictures? Are there sounds? What even is it? We could look into that if we wanted to. But that there is a story playing out, some memories, let's say, some feelings. It's undeniable as experience. And yet when we move toward it and we get curious about it, we can't find it. And it's gone. Like you can try to find the thought you just had and it's completely vanished and it will never be back. It will never be back in the way that it was. Whatever feelings are here in this moment will never be back. All of life is like that, and that it's arising in this real fullness, and it's also, in a sense, completely empty. So I think it's Zen that talks about the empty fullness or full emptiness or whatever. It's real, and it's also kind of not real in that way. And and it's just fascinating to come into our reality, our immediate in this moment experience, and sort of meet it in that way. And we can really contrast that with how it seems to be. So in our minds, it doesn't seem like that because that's the job of the mind to make you a solid you who has traveled through time, and you have these thoughts and you have those feelings and these things happen to you and it feels very, very real. And again, all the things that supposedly happened to you in your life, including what happened 2 minutes ago, where are they? Where are they? We can't, like, what's happening now? What even is it? We can't describe it. We can't touch it. It's gone. It's gone already. By the time we even try to talk about it, it's gone. So there's this very like fresh, fluid feel of life that's undeniable, but easy to miss because we're used to listening to thought, which doesn't give us that side of things. Thought gives us identity and it's all very solid feeling. But I think there's something so amazing in this exploration, and this is part of what we'll explore in March as well, I'm sure. And we look to nature and we sort of see this in nature. But even when we're looking at nature, we're often looking through the lens of our mind that says it's spring or it's summer or it's this or it's that. So we kind of know, we know that nature lets go. We know that there's no stopping it. There's no controlling it. We wouldn't even want to. And we sense, I think, that we are that as well. But what we're up against, I guess, is these identities and this mind that creates an identity that makes it feel like you're a very solid you and you are very findable and graspable. And that's just something we can explore and just see how accurate is that.
Yeah, I've been reflecting in the same lines as there's a part of us that knows that life is letting go, that we are nature. When the last apple on a tree at the end of the year falls off, I don't think that the tree is grasping or trying to hold on to it or or being sad that the last apple fell down. It just lets go when it's ready. And so there's this part of us that knows that that is nature. Just this morning, I was speaking with my father about my mom who died 4 years ago. And I was saying to him that I had this webinar with you today and that it was about letting go because it's difficult for him to let go of the fact that she died 4 years ago. And so what are we up against in a way? What is it that stops us from just living in the knowing that life is letting go? And it's what you said, it's ego, it's thinking, it's identification with something that looks solid. And it does look solid. But what if we didn't have to grasp? What if we didn't have to hold on to? We can't anyway, as you just said. It's like it's impossible to hold on to even a thought that I had a moment ago. I can think it again. But what if we didn't have to? What if we didn't have to effort, cling to, hold on to? That there's so much stress that comes in our lives because ego mind, our mind, tells us you must hold on to your past because what happened to you was so bad. Hold on to it so it doesn't happen again in the future. And it makes sense. Part of us thinks that that makes sense. That if I hold on to the thinking and to the experience I had at that time, maybe it will stop me from being hurt again. Doesn't really work though. But that's what our mind does. So for me, what we're pointing towards is that we are nature. It is natural to let go. We can't even stop it, even if we try. But our effort in trying to hold on to, for instance, I'm on vacation right now, and there's these magical moments of, being on the beach, the sun is setting, everything is beautiful. I'm there with my husband, and there's like this part of me that stop this moment. But of course, the sun goes down, it gets really cold, and we go back to our hotel. But there's something it's so natural for us to want to hold on to a moment or to something, even if it's something that was not pleasant in the past, because something in our mind tells us, hold on to this because it has a purpose, because it's important for you to know. So we hold on to both experiences that were difficult at the time, and we hold on to things that are wonderful and that we want to keep just the way it is. And yet it's not possible. So I love what you were pointing to, Amy, about what is it made of? What is this? What is its nature? That which we try to hold on to it, and just seeing that letting go is our true nature. It's what nature does.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I like how you said we try to do this, but it's not possible. And to really see that, because I think the mind will constantly convince us that it is possible in some way, that it's doing something, um, that control, that there is a us that's controlling life, at least sometimes. And of course, that's very easy to start to poke some holes in, because if we're so in control, then why aren't we just always blissful? Like if you have any control, start controlling it better, guys, right? Because what are we doing here? It's very obvious. Oh, then that's when it starts to look like, well, I only sometimes I have control, and then the whole thing, it's just like, that doesn't really make sense anymore. So but it's interesting, yes, to see the control attempts, the holding on attempts coming up, and to be able to also really know that it's never really worked and never really will. And because of, I think, and as you mentioned too, like because of just the nature of identity, if that leaf on the tree had an identity and felt like I'm a separate leaf and I need this tree to be okay, it'd be holding on too, I'm sure, but it doesn't have that. So all of nature is letting go. We are nature, but we think we aren't. We think we're separate from nature. So there's a trying to hold on. So that feels like a piece of this. It's all the same conversation, but it's almost like as our sense of who we are, who we've taken ourselves to be, really starts to shift, letting go is not something we have to do. It's just the way of things. And again, it's happening already, but we get to realize that. We get to see more, oh yeah, this is just what's already happening.
And not only seeing it, but experiencing the freedom that comes from realizing that that is our nature. You know, the whole efforting part, I don't even know if that's a word, but the whole clinging, holding on to, trying to keep something, trying to control something, trying to predict something, it's hard work. Oh my gosh, it's so hard work. And so I really see just in my own life and through the work I do with other people how this one thing of holding on in whatever form it takes is the cause of so much suffering, of so much stress. It's, and to see the freedom that comes when people realize, oh, it's when I listen to this constant chatter in my mind, it's when I listen to it and believe it to be true, that's when I continue to hold on to grasping, controlling, not letting go of. It's, I know it's a metaphor that's used a lot, but if somebody gave you a really hot stone in your hand, you'd let go immediately, right? It would be instinctual to let it go. Yet we hold on to hurtful feelings. Oh, you did this to me years ago, and I'm still holding on because I don't want it to happen again. And our mind will tell us things like that. I spoke with my aunt not long ago, and she was telling me how she was so resentful to the person who hit by accident, of course, her daughter, who has now suffered from some brain injury. And this is like 15 years ago. And
Mhm.
my aunt is still holding on to that resentment. So now she's suffering. I mean, her daughter is going through life with what happened through that unfortunate accident, but my aunt, who is physically well is holding on to that hot stone. And I can see that in me. I can see that in others, how a part of us thinks that it's a good idea instead of letting go of resentment, letting go of anger, and just being free. There's such peace and resilience and compassion that comes from realizing this and letting go of resentment, for instance.
I think the part that feels like it's a good idea in a way, we logically know it isn't, but the part that's doing that is trying to help us trying to help us not have to feel. So this is something that I talk about all the time in the past year and have just played with in my own life in huge ways, is feeling, feeling, not thinking, trying to think about it differently so I can feel better. Not saying, oh, it's just my thinking, I don't need to feel this, but fully feeling whatever's showing up. And that's what seems to help. I don't know if this is accurate, but this is how it feels. It's like, that's what seems to help the mind get the message. Okay, we don't have to keep holding on, because the holding on of the mind is just a distraction from feeling. So the more we're open to feeling, you're on feeling the anger and the sadness and the grief and the rage and everything she feels. Those are totally reasonable feelings given what happened even 15 years ago. If they're showing up now, that's what's here. Feel that. And that's where I think the mind starts to see, okay, we don't have to make that person the enemy and do this. So it's all this runaround to avoid just feeling. So I think that's a fascinating aspect of this, you know. And again, you look at nature, it's like, you know, I don't know, it just is. It's like there is no option to try to feel more of this and less of that. You just get what you get. And it's like that for us too. We get what we get, but man, the mind tries really hard to manipulate what we're getting.
Exactly, and that's why the other sentence of our seminar is called "Embracing All of Life,"
Mm.
because there's no bad feelings. They're just energy arising in the moment, and then they'll be gone a moment later. So there is this embracing of the feelings, but our mind doesn't like it. Our mind doesn't like, oh, I'm feeling horrible right now. I don't want to feel this way. And so it's trying to look for something better. And then it is that we try to manipulate how we're feeling, or trying to eat something or drink something to make ourselves feel better. What if we didn't have to? And to me, the recognition of, but what is it that I'm feeling?
Mm.
What is it made of? What is its nature? Because when I see that the nature is fluid, it's not a solid thing. Yes, it manifests in my body so that it feels solid because I'm feeling it. I can feel it in every part of my being, not being, but maybe body. It feels solid, but what is it really made of? And so there's really, for me, what I'm seeing more and more of is that recognizing the nature of thought, the nature of feeling, and not being frightened of it, not try to get rid of it, not try to manipulate it. There's a freedom in letting everything arise that arises naturally, and then just letting it go when it's not here anymore, because it will, because it is its nature. It cannot stay. I think that's a very important point that I know that we'll talk much more on in the seminar.
Yeah, that even when we say letting, we're not letting anything. We're just recognizing the nature. You know, it's just recognizing what's already happening. So even if we try really hard to stay resentful, we're just gonna feel a lot of resistance or whatever we feel, you know, but it's not doing we're not in control. It's there's still just life doing what life's doing.
Yeah. I was you did a masterclass for me last year, Amy. We were talking about addictions, and I loved one of the metaphors you used of the wave, that it's always the waves, it's always going to crash at some point. It's its nature. There's no wave that keeps on being at the height of what it is, and our feelings are just like that. It's nature to come down and crash down on the shore at some point, and it's the bud's nature to be completely tense just before it blooms, but it's its nature to bloom. There's something about recognizing our true nature that, like you said, it's not even, we don't have to do anything. It's just recognizing what's already happening, and yeah, just embracing that.
Yeah, and recognizing that we don't know anything. Like there's not really even a wave. That's just a word we made up for some arbitrary shape of water. Like what's a wave? No one knows what a wave is, and by the time you try to measure it and call it a wave, it's already moved on. It's all just ocean, and even ocean. What is that, right? So, for sure, like when it comes to what we call our experience, and like you mentioned a little bit, like it's happening to me and it's in my body and all of that is thought. All of that is assumption. And it's we can't help it. It's how it looks and feels when we feel like I'm a separate me. I'm not nature. I'm me, and nature's something out there. But when that's the case, when that's the perspective we're living in, then it's going to feel like this is fear or anger or bliss, and it's happening to me. But that's just an unquestioned assumption. I mean, and that's something we can just really look at and see, is that really the truth of it? Where is the you? Where do you start and where do you end? And how is this energy? How is it fear? How could it be fear? What does that even mean? It has to be just thought calling it that. And then, of course, as soon as thought calls something something, it feels like that. Like, but it's all made up, really. I mean, and again, like I was saying in the very beginning, that does not take away from its reality. It is absolutely full and unavoidable and undeniable, and it's also completely made up and empty, because who's to say what fear is? And by the time your mind labels it that, it's moving, it's gone. So there's something about just really being curious about the nature of things that taps us, that starts to reveal it, curious from a place of I don't know what anything is. And again, you can look at that for yourself and see what you think you know, what looks obvious and clear, and then just question that. And we can do that with you in March. But there's something about questioning in that way and seeing, wow, I don't really even know what this experience is, this experience that I'm fighting and I don't like it and all of that. I don't even know what it is. That's like, it's just funny. It just becomes a laughable, honestly. And again, I don't mean to dismiss our suffering, because we all suffer, and we can also look and see what this thing is that's making us suffer.
I think what has been one of the biggest realizations for me is the me part, how it's because I identify with this limited body, whatever is arising in the moment, is when I do that, then there's suffering. That it's taking things personal. Like, somebody writes an email, and even if it's like, you're a horrible person, or whatever it is, it's like, if I see it as just energy, if I don't take it personally, what there is, it cannot grasp me. There's something I really have come to see more about, because I'm really not done, but how much it matters when I take things personally, when I hold on to that identification. Then of course it seems like somebody's doing something to me and it's wrong and I should react, and now I'm going to write back to them, or whatever it is. And this, it's really powerful to see that only when I identify with this limited body mind do I suffer. It's so incredible to just realize that deeper and deeper, because then there comes, it's not that I don't feel all kinds of things, but it's just more energy that arises, lets go, because that's just its nature.
Yeah, and I think that happens as we just get really curious. Like we can't, um, and I just point this out because I know this is how our mind hears it. Like I can't let go. I don't know how to not feel like a me. And like no one does. No one does. So it's not about that. It's not about not taking things like you getting a mean email and somehow figuring out how to not take it personally. It's like it's that kind of what you're pointing to, and that is like when we're questioning the who we are, maybe on a consistent basis for a little bit, it becomes obvious that it's not personal. Like that can just start to shift. And I don't know how or when or where that happens, but it happens. It's 100% possible for all of us. And just even a little bit of curiosity in that direction, it's huge. It just, and everyone here knows that because you're all curious people who've been looking at deeper things in life. So, just from some time before you even came across the principles till now, I'm sure many things look different and we have no idea how that has come to happen, but it just has. So we can just keep being curious about those, what feels like the kind of foundation of this, which is like, am I nature or am I a person in nature? Who or what am I? What is my nature? Is my nature the same as that tree's nature? Like, to look at those, yes, there's that's where it gets shocking, like you're saying, where someone says something to you or something happens and you're like, hey, and then maybe the next day it doesn't feel like that. Maybe the next day it grips you again, but there's such a wider range of experience, I think, that starts to happen when the solidity of who we think we are is not so much.
Yeah. I remember being a teenager and being very interested in psychology and spirituality. And one of the questions that I came across very quickly in my searching was, who are you? Like, what do they mean? What does that mean? Who am I? And so that's taken many different forms through the
Yeah.
years, until I saw what the depth of that question, where it's pointing us towards. And so in the beginning, I would go, well, I'm a woman, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a coach, or my wife, or, whatever it was. It really took a long time before I could really get even a little sense of where that question is pointing. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. And I think it's a direction. It's not the end. It's not anything. It's just, there is something powerful. And whenever I listen to people who've had experiences of, and I won't even call it an experience, it's really a seeing of their true nature. When I listen to them, it's just so ordinary the way that they speak about it, that there's a falling away of all these identifications. I've often spoken about it as labels. It's just one
Mhm.
metaphor that we label ourselves with all these different things. And of course, then if you touch that label, I'm gonna get angry because I like this label.
Mhm.
It's really powerful to see what happens when that all just falls away. when I don't try to cling to my labels, to who I think I am, but realize who I am behind that or before that, whatever you call it.
Yeah, and um, I, I feel like we can explore it in a curious way, and we can also each learn to kind of take this into our lives. Like for me, it's a constant seeing. It's not a conversation or just something that you get in a seminar or workshop. Like that can really plant the seeds for something that starts to be obvious in day-to-day, moment-to-moment life. Like along those lines, like and this is just me, that I'm not saying do this or that this is the way or anything, but there's a constant recognition, near constant recognition of how the mind is trying to grab and form me. Like there can also be plenty of time where there's just this. There's just no me, and here's what time it is, and here's what I have going on later, and what are they thinking of me, and any of that. That can be there. And there can be a recognition of like that. I picture it as like drawing a little stick figure. And then the stick figure falls apart. And then the mind comes back in and puts the head back on and some little arts constantly trying to like make you you. And if you notice your thinking, you will notice that happening. The best way that it does that is with time, I think. There's a you and there's a past and there's a future. Again, kind of all that not letting go stuff that we spoke about. It's like there's a real solidity here, it feels like. But then in an instant, it can all just kind of wash away in a sense, or just it feels like it softens in a way. And then there's just this. So I don't know if that makes any sense. It's a little vague to talk about, but what I wanted to say in that is like we can start this exploration that then becomes its own inquiry that happens, and you don't have to work at it. It's not like a practice you have to sit down and do, but it just will start to occur and kind of unravel on its own throughout your life. And that's amazing. Like to watch the mind jump in and have a reaction and really see that like as, oh, there it is again. Um, but not have to feel all bound up in this body as an identity that needs to protect itself, even though you can see the mechanism that's trying to make that happen play out.
I think that's such an important point, that we are and we'll be exploring a direction to look, and even that's language. It's not even that, but it's an ongoing exploration. It's an ongoing looking or seeing, and seeing
Mhm.
deeper and deeper. It's not that you come to the seminar and then you're done. It's constant, and it's not a doing. I sometimes use the word a curiosity. It's like, oh, here it comes again. And sometimes I don't even notice it, but it's just there, and I kind of know it, and but I don't pay attention to it. It's like we cannot not have a mind. I don't know if I said that right, but the mind is going to be there. It's just there, but it doesn't seem as solid to me in my life as it did even 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. There's something about its solidity that starts to crumble, and not by anything I've done, but I would say there's been a curiosity of to see deeper. Well, okay. Sorry about that.
We used it as an example of how everything's always disappearing. But you're back.
Perfect. Yeah. Mm.
I think you were talking about, and I don't know if this is exactly where you were going, but it just came to mind for me how this sort of curiosity and these kind of inquiries start to just take on a life of their own, that it can feel like something we put a little effort into and a little curiosity into. We're turning in the direction of this and we're wanting to see more, and that's beautiful. That's effortful or not, it doesn't matter. But it does feel like at some point there's just a momentum that gets going, and then it's like, yeah, I don't know. It does take on a life of its own. And again, I think we've all probably seen that in any exploration that all of you are doing. You read a book or you go to a webinar or something, and some of those ideas, they just are bopping around in there. You don't have to do anything with them, but they'll come up. They'll wake you up in the middle of the night. You'll have an insight, or you'll see the next movie you watch through the lens of this. And that's what I just love about this day and age where we can talk with people all over the world. There's so much information. It can get a little overwhelming if we get obsessive about it. But if you're just picking and choosing what you're drawn toward, I love that. Like a little bit can go a long way, because it does feel like this is nature. This is truth. It's nature wanting to be revealed. It's like it's like life wanting to pop up and say, "Oh, cool, you're seeing me. You're seeing that you haven't had control. I've been here the whole time." And we just see what we see when we see it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how it's not about, like I think I started saying just when we came on, what if we didn't have to hold on to, cling to, try, effort? I mean, even looking in this direction can sound like, doing something, but not even that. It's very freeing to not have to do something. And I think we wrote in our description of the seminar, ego doesn't like this conversation
Yeah.
because it doesn't have its hold on us. Everything that it's been trying to do, it's our entire life, it's like, well, you can be there, it's fine, and there's so much more to see. I just love that.
Yeah, there's a real way that control ego mechanism shows up and totally tries to convince us that we need it. We kind of said this in the beginning too, like we have to do these things. Or sometimes it isn't even so much that we need it, but it will show up as we like it. Like I just heard someone talking about this. Well, I just really love to plan my life out and be super productive and think about what things are going to get me later. And that's fine, of course, it's all fine. But it's just something also to be curious about, because what I asked her um, is then why are we talking about it? Like, what's the problem then? Is there a downside? She's like, well, yeah, the downside is I also get very obsessed with it and I get really tight about it and I get really mad when it doesn't go my way. And it's like, okay, well, then that's just an awesome thing to explore. So I just point that out because the mind will also kind of make it be like, well, this is fun and this is what it means to be a human. And of course you get mad when bad things happen. And I just, yeah, this is kind of funny. It's just kind of like, okay, maybe. Or who knows, maybe I won't listen to you so much, little mind up there. And then we'll just see how that goes. Like we just get to experiment.
Mm. All those labels like, well, I'm a planner,
Yeah.
or I know who I am. Really? Is it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, or we we need to do certain things. Like the society wouldn't function and all of that. And again, on some level, there may be really wise, intelligent questions. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Juliet. We just had that conversation. On some level, they're really wise, great questions, but also it's just a cool thing to be kind of curious about. Like what if it isn't that way? Well, not that we aren't going to follow laws and make plan a flight and that kind of thing, but do we need to think about it? Does that require control? Because again, look how much happens in nature. Look how much happens. It's not lazy. It's not lazy. It's not sitting around doing nothing. It's incredibly active. And as far as we know, there's no controller there, there's no sense of that. So why would we be any different? Maybe we'll plan flights and we'll do things and we can just get curious, about about how much we're really making happen.
What I love about this exploration is that it's fun. I really find it fun. Like I wake up in the morning and then like I wonder what's going to happen today. And then I'll find myself planning something. You're coming and there's flights to be bought and but it just happens like, oh, I guess I was planning a flight today, or I guess I was planning a new seminar today, or I guess I'm going to iron all my clothes today and watch a webinar, or it's such a fun to see what just comes up. And of course, I have clients, I have things to do and places to be. That's true, but it's not it just feels like a flow where I effort. Oh my gosh, I used to be so stressed in my 30s and even 40s, and I feel now that I feel more aligned with nature. And if you saw me on any given day, I think you'd say, like nature, I'm not lazy. But it doesn't feel difficult. It doesn't feel like an effort. I don't feel stressed. I just, whatever comes my way is there's a sense of, oh, I want to do this now. But not from here. It comes, I don't know, it's just a movement. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a really nice feeling.
And I think you spoke to this a little bit earlier. And when it's not like that, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So, and like that's part of this whole human mechanism thing, is that there's going to be this coming up and wanting to push and pull on life just because it's old, even if you don't believe it anymore, even if you don't feel like a me in the world's out there quite the same way, there's still conditioning that comes up. Because what comes up for me, as you say, that is like, I think a lot of things like that also, I can relate to what you just said. And then there's some things that kind of will pop out in stark contrast to that. Like right now, my husband is looking for a job and I'm helping him. And I know how he should be doing it, and he's not doing it my way. And so but it's all a great, I'm not saying it's great and it's comfortable, as in I'm always like, oh, there's my mind again. But it's like the feeling of that tension and contraction just starts to get really obvious, and more obvious as conditioning. It doesn't mean I disagree with it even, but it just is like, oh, there's my conditioning saying, here's what you should be doing right now. And again, it kind of comes back to that feeling piece, like where the mind is wanting to control life. I can feel what that feels like. Ultimately, what I've noticed is what's behind that is a feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. Somewhere in there, there's a like, no, this should go this way. And it's fascinating to see that because it's playing out for all of us all the time in various ways, how things should go. But to just keep looking at that, we're still human and that stuff will come up, but we get to like turn toward it and be curious about it rather than turn away from it and try to push it away. And then it just doesn't, then we really get to feel the impermanence even of something like powerlessness, which is not a feeling humans enjoy, but it's fleeting. It's so fluid. Like Natasha said earlier, it's so amazing to just be like, okay, I feel totally helpless right now. I don't even know what that is. All I know is I feel stuff. I don't know what helplessness is. So I'm going to look at it.
Well, I can't wait to be with you in person again, Amy, in Denmark, and to explore this for 2 whole days with people, to just look together. There's a looking, there's an exploring, there's a talking about, to so that we can see more, that we can discover more. There's no end result that's going to come out of the seminar, but I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun exploring together and pointing and hearing what shows up for people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best part. I'm excited to be with everyone and see what's coming up for you and see where it looks like, no, I do need to control, or maybe I just like to control, or whatever. That's all that is so perfect, where we get to see it in real time and then just be curious about it together.
Yeah. That there's no wrong way of feeling. There's nothing that's not uh you know allowed. It's really embracing all of it, all of life, and just looking at it with curiosity and see what we can see. So that's, I think, to me, that's what this weekend is going to be about in March, being curious together, exploring together.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We're gonna put this video out on different social media so that you can see it, and we'll put in the information if you are interested in coming to Copenhagen with us. This weekend will not be live streamed, so it's only in attendance that you can be part of it. And I think it's going to be great because there's something about being there live that's just so fresh. Um, so we're going to put that out, put information about where you can see more and how to sign up. And then I just really hope that to see you in Copenhagen and be with us for this exploration.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here today. It's great to share.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Amy. It'll be great to see you again and have fun in Denmark again. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.